Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 32. Have at it, Scott. Ephesians 4:32 says, be kind to one another. Y'all know that passage. Tender-hearted, forgiving one another. And so kindness is listed there in, of course, Ephesians 4, coupled with Colossians chapter 3 and 1 Peter 3 and 4 are passages teaching us how to do the practical things in our Christianity, how to live around brethren and also around the world and make a difference and be salt and light. And so one of the things he mentions here, of course, is kindness. Do you want to be a better person, anybody? I know I do. Well, that's where you start, with kindness. Kindness is just a fundamental thing, and we talk about fundamentals sometimes in the church, and when we do, we talk about things like faith, and we talk about baptism, talk about the church and how it's governed, all of those different things, but what about kindness? Is that just one of those fundamental things? A lot of times we talk about doctrine more so than the practical things, and I think they're all meshed together, in scriptures. And so we need to have our doctrine right, what we believe, why we believe what we believe, of course, but we also need to have the practical right in living it out and making a difference in our life. And so we're on chapter 3 of our book, Be Kind, Blessed Are the Meek. And Matthew 5, verse 5, of course, is the passage there that says, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And so the way that Dan Winkler breaks this down, we look at starter questions, of course, to get us rolling, get us talking, get us thinking and everything. Then he talks about, after the introduction, he talks about defining these things, looking at their original language so we can better understand these attitudes that we are to be, that we are to have, and then the demonstration of that. And so far, he's given the perfect demonstration every time of the only perfect person that's ever lived, and that's Jesus. There's other, of course, demonstrations, but he always demonstrates by showing Jesus. And then third and last, application, how we can have this kind of attitude in our life. So study starter questions. I don't know if we want to do number 2 or not, but we'll do number 1 for sure. In Acts 28, 1 and 2, what 2 things did the natives of Malta do in showing the kindness to Paul? Yep, kindled a fire and welcomed every one of us. And these are natives of an island, so he's shipwrecked. He's on an island. Here's the natives, and yet even natives know how to be kind, right? And so we need to be kind. Have y'all ever met people that did not even believe in God or were not very religious at all, and they were some of the kindest people in the world, and then you meet some that are even in the church that are not kind at all? That's messed up. And so we need to remember that kindness is just one of those characteristics, fruit of the Spirit that we bear to draw people. People are drawn to kindness, of course, and we want to draw people to Jesus Christ. And so it's just one of those fundamental things. Job 6 and verse 14 says this, and I quote, he who withholds kindness forsakes the fear of the Almighty. And so that's pretty straightforward. If I'm not kind, that I do not have a healthy fear. We're going to talk about fear of God today a little bit, but we do not have a healthy fear of God if we are not kind to people. And then Micah chapter 6 and verse 8, one other passage, says, what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? In the heading on mine, it says true religion. I don't know what yours says, but that's basically what he's talking about is true religion, being lived out in our life. And he says, this is what God wants you to do. And one thing is, of course, to love kindness. Do y'all want to do number 2 in the study starter questions? Anybody? Not everybody at once. All right, we're going to skip number 2. All right, we're not going to read everything, obviously, but I do. Yes. Welcomed. They welcomed them.
Okay.
So kindled a fire and welcomed them. Those 2 things. All right, here in the introduction, when I get to heaven, did y'all read that? I like that. So let's read that first paragraph there to get the ball rolling if you didn't read that. Would somebody else like to read that paragraph there? All right, Nancy. Hold on, Nancy. Mike coming.
I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. When I get to heaven, there are a few questions I'd like to ask. They're not really all that important. I just want to know. Here are two. Why did rose bushes have to have thorns? Why did the thorns have to be upside down on the stems? Ever notice that? You reach into a rose bush to clean out debris, and sure enough, you'll get pricked by a thorn. If you're not careful, you'll jerk back in self-defense, and it'll rip you to pieces. I know, it's not a salvation issue. I'd just like to know why it had to be that way. A rose, a thorn. Right now, you and I have the reputation of being one or the other. Others think of us as individuals who invite the fragrance of joy into their lives, or individuals who tear them up on the inside. Which are you? Which am I? The third attitude we are to be in Jesus' list of Beatitudes teaches us to be a rose, to be gentle and kind.
All right. I like that little story. That is so very true. I think we've probably all done that before. So the definition of kindness, he always breaks it down looking at the original language to better understand it. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, and what? Kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. What does that mean, fruit of the Spirit? Yeah, it blossoms. I like the way you put that, Nancy. We blossom these things. We show these things to the world. It's the evidence of belonging to Jesus Christ. And if we do not possess these things, it doesn't matter how much doctrine we know. It really doesn't matter even if we've obeyed the gospel. If we're not living these things out, then we're not right with God, and we're certainly not drawing people to God. Kindness, and this is in the definition section, kindness is at the heart of a heart controlled by the Holy Spirit, Galatians 5:22. Look at the list of virtues again. See what is slap dab in the middle. 4 traits are mentioned, then kindness, and 4 more traits follow. I can see why. How can we say we really love someone and be unkind to them all at the same time? How can we be joyfully encouraging others to live in peace with each other and be unkind ourselves? How can we be gentle souls in control of self and be unkind? Venomous critics. Get the idea? There is nothing good or faithful about a life void of kindness. Jesus' be kind beatitude is one that can't be emphasized too much. I've told you before, I think, but back a couple of years ago, and they actually did it for a couple of years there in Rogersville, to where I think it was the Methodist church down the road, had the kindness signs out, be kind. And I like that. It just rubbed me the right way. And they're obviously trying to get that congregation to see, just be kind. Now, why? Why is that? It attracts people, but do you see the opposite of that in our world around us? A lot. More than ever before, I think. And so just trying to remind us that one of the foundational principles of being a child of God is just simply being kind to people. So breaking down the language here of this beatitude. Number 1, blessed are the meek. And we have heard this before, but maybe we need to hear it again. Meekness is not weakness, right? We think about meekness, a lot of times we think about someone who is very meek and humble, not outspoken and not in your face. And we equate that oftentimes with weakness. And that's not. It's what? It's what under control? Strength or power under control. That's what meekness is and can be defined as. So Dan says, blessed are the meek, the first part. Meek may sound like weak, but is quite the opposite. Think of a boorish ruffian. Boorish? I'm not familiar with that term. Boorish? I'm just an uneducated swine.
Are you boorish, though?
I can be. Yeah, rugged, rough, I guess. Think of a boorish ruffian being changed into a gentleman. Think of a wild stallion being brought under the control of its master. That's the meaning of Jesus' word, pres, meek. When we're meek, our strengths are harnessed and controlled by our master. Gentleness is a synonym the Holy Spirit used for meekness when he referenced the meekness and gentleness of Christ, 2 Corinthians 10 and verse 1. That's what meekness is all about, is being kind and gentle with others in the use of our strengths. Were y'all here Wednesday? Many of you were. If you were not, you missed an excellent, I think, in my opinion, one of the best summer series lessons I've heard this whole year. Philip Goad was here, and what was the phrase that he kept saying over and over again? But I didn't. But I didn't. And so he's talking about, in life and people bugging you, people rubbing you the wrong way, people offending you, whether it's on the road, in the workplace, in your family, wherever it is. And I could have, but I didn't. That person cut me off, and I could have, and go down the list of things, whatever, I won't even go there, but I didn't. That person, did this to me at work and called me this, and I could have, but I didn't. And so that's kind of the idea, I think, behind this beatitude is, under control. It's not that I cannot do something to you who have done something wrong to me, but I'm choosing not to. I'm harnessing that control and putting it under Jesus and his control. Second part of the beatitude, they shall inherit the earth. So he says, these words, this is straight out of your book, number 2 there. He says, these words are found in the Psalms, and it's easy to see why Jesus would use them to promise or promote, that is, kindness. They're a symbolic description of those who will, A, abide in well-being. I guess scriptures for all these. B, enjoy abundant peace. C, be blessed by the Lord. And D, be exalted by the Lord. In other words, your life and mine will be the best kind of life possible if we choose to be kind. What do we say? Blanking people with kindness. Killing people with kindness. I was telling Steph about this in surveying the other day. There was a guy that just blew up, man. He flew all over me. I was there to survey his little lot. There was a new house being built back behind him, and they thought for sure they were coming over a whole half inch, That's about right, People throw a fit about everything. But anyway, man, he let me have it. I went out there and I found his corners, reestablished a couple of them that were gone, had them staked up, and it looked a little odd because the fence in the back was on a different angle, so it kind of looked skewed. But man, I'm talking about getting up in my face, throwing a fit, and I told Steph, I said, I was proud of myself. The old me would have let him have it. And I was very calm. Scott, what you laughing at? I realize you deal with it a whole lot more than I do, but I was calm, collective, and I talked to him in a nice way. I even told him, I said, well, I will accommodate you. If you think my equipment is bad or something, let's get this chain. If you want to check out my theodolite laser with a chain, does that make a whole lot of sense? But anyway, to pull that chain out. And so I did. We pulled out the chain and we taped it off. And he said, oh, okay. But anyway, he was letting me have it. And I talked to him in a nice way. And before you know it, he was testifying to me. He was talking about preaching and he was giving me the dates. He said, oh yes, I preach. And he was giving me the dates he's preaching and everything. I wasn't saying a word to him about me being a preacher. I don't usually. I talk about the Lord, but I don't have to tell somebody I'm a preacher. People look at you kind of different when you tell them that you're a preacher. So he was testifying of me. Well, I told Steph this story a little while back and told her, I said, you know what? The unkindness and bad temper that he showed at first said more than his testimony. him telling me, and wasn't making any sense anyway with his testimony, throwing passages out that didn't even make sense and everything, but I didn't go there. But I said, him being so unkind and up in my face and yelling at me said more to me and made more of a negative impression on me than all the passages and talking about how he preached and everything. Kindness goes a long ways. But part of that is when I responded to him in a nice way, it calmed him down. And so just being kind to people that are not kind to you a lot of times will change the atmosphere, the environment, the situation, defuse somebody that is on fire. Scott, would you like to share something? I see you over there I know you got a good story just on top of your head. Have you found that to be the case, though? I mean, in your line of work, with a pistol on your side and mace and possibly a stick and everything else.
Yeah, that's typically the best way to go.
What, to use those items on an individual?
Sometimes you have to, but typically, talking calm and trying to get them to realize, hey, I understand you're upset and you think I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, talking to somebody like that with a calm, cool, collective head will get more accomplished than screaming at them. So
right,
because all that does is get a supervisor called, and then you're in the supervisor's office. So.
And Steph could tell you stories about that too. Everybody knows where she works. So, so answering bad temper with kindness goes a long ways. In your book, anybody want to testify or share an experience where maybe you defused a situation by your kindness? By God's kindness working through you? All right, let's look at the book here. What do you think? Below, list the fruit of the Spirit in order and underline the one in the center. What's the fruit of the Spirit? Okay, so which one does he want to underline there? Kindness. Which is translated what? Meekness a lot of times. So kindness, I think, in the New King James. So I think we all understand, of course, what kindness is when Jesus is talking about this in this beatitude. Any questions or comments about that part before we go on to looking at Jesus and the example of that? All right, let's move on. Number 2, demonstration of kindness, being Jesus, of course. Before going there, I wanted to look at Philippians chapter 4 and look at some things having to do with kindness there. If y'all will indulge me. Philippians chapter 4. So look at the commands that are mentioned here. Philippians 4 verses 4 through 6. And look for our attitude that we're talking about. Philippians 4, 4 through 6, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So a few different commands here. I think at least 4 different commands here that are given in this passage. Number 1, rejoice in the Lord. In other words, that could be translated, be a happy Christian. Be a happy Christian. We're so blessed in so many different ways. Rejoice, because it could always be worse, and today is better than yesterday, isn't it, John? And tomorrow's going to be better than today. Command number 2, let your reasonableness, literally gentleness, be known to everyone. And so what's he talking about there? What other word is translated gentleness here? Kindness. And so gentleness, they're used interchangeably throughout the Word of God. So let your gentleness be known to everyone. Let your kindness be known to everyone. And you will be known as a kind person. You do acts of kindness, and that reputation spreads, and everybody knows what kind of person you are. Then people might start asking to borrow things from you and all kinds of stuff. There ain't no telling, but you do get a reputation for being that way. Command number 3, do not be anxious. Basically said, don't worry, right? Don't worry about anything, basically. And then, command number 4, in everything let your requests be made known to God. So, in other words, paraphrase, no matter what's bothering you, talk to God about it. Take it to God in prayer and He will help you. But notice, happiness, trust, prayer, kindness is right there in the middle of all of that. To be kind, let your kindness be known to everyone. It is a core characteristic of a child of God, is basically what the point is. And a kind heart also is one that helps in many different ways. With 1 Timothy 3 and verse 3, the passage there is talking about the qualifications of elders, of shepherds, leaders in the Lord's church, and one of them is gentleness, also translated kindness. And so you cannot be an elder in the Lord's church, a shepherd in the Lord's church, and not be kind. Anybody known an elder that is not kind? I have known a few elders that did not have that basic characteristic fruit of the Spirit about them. And honestly, it's hard to follow someone like that. We are to be submissive to our leadership. We are to follow their lead. The Bible teaches that. It makes it very difficult when that person is not kind. Most of the elders I've known by far have that characteristic about them. And I do definitely think that the elders, the shepherds that we have here, are very kind. And they show that in a number of different ways. The kindness is great for fellowship, Ephesians 4 verses 1 through 6. These are things that kindness helps. Isn't it nice when we're gathered here, all of our different personalities and backgrounds and age differences and educations and all of the diversity we have here, yet we have unity in Christ. But sometimes with all of the differences, we can rub each other the wrong way, because there's different personality types as well. And so we have to learn to be kind to people that aren't maybe just like us, or someone that maybe rubs me slightly wrong, So kindness is necessary in leadership. Kindness is necessary in fellowship, Ephesians 4, 1 through 6. And then also in every relationship. And you'll find that in Colossians chapter 3, 13 through 17. It's listed there. And also Ephesians chapter 4 and 1 Peter chapter 3. So kindness, you see, is a great thing to have when it comes to all of these different things. And the perfect example that Dan talks about is Jesus. Who would like to read, talking about Jesus, that first paragraph there? And then we'll kind of quickly go over the passages, not reading every bit of that, but just as an introduction to Jesus. Anybody? Henry? I don't know. My pages are different than yours. Is this page 24? 25. This is the illustrated Jesus. So it's that first paragraph there.
Also a man of meekness. Remember his words. I am meek and lowly in heart. He could say that because those who are meek harness their strength to help others, and that's how Jesus lived. Let's step into the 8th chapter of each gospel and see if that's not what we find.
All right, thank you. Isn't that interesting that it's the 8th chapter of each gospel that you find this? I thought that was really neat. And I had to kind of do a double take and go back and read that. I was like, what? Seriously? But yeah, it's the 8th chapter of each of these that shows this characteristic and Jesus having this. So Matthew chapter 8 verses 1 through 4, Jesus helped someone with a disease, a terrible disease of what? Leprosy, no cure at the time. You're going to die from this. You are in a leper colony. You've lost your family, your job, and everything that you hold dear because of this terrible disease. And first of all, and we're not going to read every bit of this, but you know about this account. First of all, Jesus was touched by the man. And so what does it mean by touched by the man? He was moved to do something. showing empathy, not just sympathy, not just feeling bad for the person, but actually, kindness is a verb. It's something that it's not just feeling bad for them, but also doing for them. And so first Jesus was touched by the man, and so he was moved to show pity on him, of course, to heal him. But then I like the second Jesus touched the man. He was touched by the man to move to do something for him, but then secondly, Jesus touched the man himself. Wow, with leprosy, and that makes all the difference in the world. Just the simple fact that he was willing to show that kindness when nobody else. Can you imagine being a leper and nobody ever wanting anything to do with you, much less touch you because how unclean you are? And Jesus reaches out and touches him. And so it's not just the healing power that Jesus was giving him, it was kindness that he was showing him. We all need that. We all need that love and kindness in our lives for other people to show that to us. It's just a part of being human. In Matthew chapter 8, verses 22 through 26 is the second example. Jesus helped someone with a what? With a disability there. And it was blindness. My mother has become legally blind in her 80s. No, that was the example he gave. What was the disability here? I don't remember in Mark chapter 8. Was it blindness? Okay. Hence the illustration or example he uses. First, Jesus gave this blind man some individual attention. Took the man by the hand, led him out of the village, and led the man away from all the hustle and bustle of city life, and gave him some one-on-one attention. Everybody needs that, one-on-one attention. So he gave the blind man something. Secondly, Jesus gave this blind man special attention. He touched the man twice. He says, that's right, twice. He spat in the man's eyes, which does not sound like a good thing, does it? Touched him, and the man's sight was partially restored. Then Jesus put his hands on him a second time, and the man saw everything clearly. Is it just me, or do you also find it peculiar to see Jesus heal this man in stages? I don't know. What y'all think about that? Huh? Well, he heals people in a lot of different ways, He can just speak. And that's one of the things that really impresses me about Jesus is that he could just will it to be done. He could just speak it to be done. Instead, he reaches out and actually touches someone that is unclean, that nobody wants anything to do with.
He didn't have to go to the house for that little girl. He just spoke the word.
Right.
And they said, she's healed.
Yeah, and to think about the great distance that he would walk sometimes to go somewhere, knowing and using that as an example, he didn't have to do that. He could just speak the word. But Jesus did those things not only to prove that he was the Son of God, to develop faith in people, but also just to show love and kindness to people, I believe. Number 3, in Luke 8, 26 through 33, Jesus helped someone with a demon in this place. Demons were unclean spirits, know all of that. In Luke 8, Jesus disturbed a whole pack of them, living in one man's body, and he helped the man by uttering the same command twice. First, Jesus gave a one-word command to the demon. He said, go, and commanded them to transfer their presence from the man's body into pigs. And then secondly, Jesus gave that same one-word command to the demonic. He said to the man, go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you. Do you think Jesus was showing even some love to the demons, in a sense? Yeah, and I think that's part of what he's trying to bring out here. He gave them an unclean, there's a parable that talks about unclean spirits, and if they're not in someone, has to go through dry places looking for someone to inhabit. And so here, he gave them the swine, right? Yes. And so Jesus, it's amazing to me that Jesus would even show compassion and kindness even to the demons, yes, in a sense. What do y'all think about that? Have y'all ever thought about that before? Am I seeing something that's not there? I mean, that's how it appears to me. Yeah, he did it, but I mean, I guess I never thought about it much until he brought it out here.
What I think comes from that is, you know, we all have, I know I do, I don't know about everybody, I have some bad demons. And so I ask God to get rid
Y'all
of them.
heard it here today.
They already know it. Anyway, I'm honest about it, but yeah, I have to ask. I mean, I do a lot. Ask God when I'm going to help somebody or be kind to somebody, you know, get rid of my demon. And he does. So right here, I think the demons really knew God would take care of them. And because he could have done worse, a lot
Right.
worse.
Well, they even asked.
Yes.
And so, yeah, he could have done a whole lot worse. He could have completely destroyed them.
Absolutely.
Carolyn, you're sweet. I don't know. Sweet demons. He's like, her? Or is that, are you pointing at? I'll move on.
That might be an example for us. You know, to love those that maybe necessarily don't love us.
Right.
You know, and Jesus is showing that there, that it's not just Christians should, you know, care about other Christians. We got to care about the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that might be a little example he's trying to show you.
It really brings it to life and makes it real when we, at the first of the week, begin to go to work and we're dealing with people that are very unkind and very unholy, if you will, unchristlike, you know, to remember that I can help them out by being kind to them. They don't want to hear a passage, you know, they don't want to hear a passage quoted, but to see Jesus being lived through you, you know, and you not act like the rest of the world and respond like the rest of the world speaks loudly. And then people oftentimes will want to hear more if you can share with them the gospel after seeing your behavior. Second, Jesus gave that same one-word command to the demonic. We've already looked at that. Our fourth example, John 8, verses 1 through 11. Jesus helped someone with the consequences of a bad decision, a woman who was caught in adultery. And y'all all know that particular account. What did the religious want to do? Why did they want to stone her? Caught in the very act, but was that not what the law called for? Yeah, so actually they were trying to do what the law commanded them to do. So what makes it wrong that they wanted to do that? Have y'all ever thought about it? What'd you say? They didn't bring the man. They didn't bring the man. There was no kind of trial, but the main thing Jesus is talking about and dealing with that, or what he demonstrates in dealing with that woman, is their attitude. It wasn't that they weren't trying to be righteous by like, well, this woman has committed sin, and Sarah, when we love our God so much, we hate sin so much that, you know, something needs to be done about this, and I hate that this has happened, but we're going to have to try. No, man, they couldn't wait to stone this woman to death. Their attitude was one of the opposite of being kind, you know, very unloving. And that was really what Jesus was trying to show to them. So first of all, Jesus had something to say to those who brought the woman. He said, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. Try to look inward. When we're looking at everybody else's fault, think about yourself. Look in the mirror, because nobody's without fault. And then second, Jesus had something to say to the woman. He said, woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you? The law of Moses required 2 or 3 witnesses before putting someone to death. And so they didn't have that, did they? No. And there wasn't a single witness left to establish this woman's guilt. And so he goes and tells her to what? To go and sin no more. Not condoning sin, but he's condoning the religious attitude. I mean, that's what he's condemning, not condemn. He's condemning the religious attitude and also sin. Huh? Right, to see what he's going to do. It wasn't about sin. It wasn't about making the law right, being just. Good point, Ronnie. All right, what do you think in your book, where we fill in some blanks here? That number 2? All right, mark it. Put a date there. Thanks for your comments.